Hey guys, Jordan West, e-commerce entrepreneur here. Today I got to sit down and chat with Craig Hammond from Peejamas. We talked about all sorts of stuff marketing wise with your e-commerce brand that I think you guys will get a lot out of. They have a really functional product and I think that really helps them market in a certain way, and I think you guys will get a lot out of the conversation that I had with Craig. Today's video is brought to you by Mindful Marketing. They use ads to get you off using ads. Most e-commerce brands rely heavily on Facebook and Google ads for the majority of their revenue. At Mindful Marketing, they use paid ads to build you a community of loyal and repeat customers that will exist long after Facebook and Google. So go to mindfulmarketing.co to find out more. Now, on to today's episode. I am here with Craig Hammond. Craig, welcome to Secrets to Scaling Your E-Commerce Brand.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we officially talked for 16 minutes before this episode. I think that may be one of the longest preambles I've had. So you guys know this episode is going to be good.
Yeah, or we can cut it down if we run out of things to talk about.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not. No, one of the things that, and people will know after, like 190 episodes or whatever this one's going to be, I have the gift of gab. If I could, I would just continue to go on and on and on. And if it gets cut short, it's because I just don't like you. And that is very rare. That's like, like 1 in 100. Yeah, and then your
episode, guys,
magically won't get published.
Yeah,
I've actually only had one. I've had one person, and I was like midway through, I'm like, sorry, man, this just isn't working. So
no way,
Craig, this is not going to happen with you.
I have a podcast as well, and this isn't an opportunity for me to self-promote, so I
please
won't talk much about it. But we've had a couple that were like, should we release that? It wasn't very good. So I know the pain, man. It's real. Like sometimes the content's just not there,
No, totally. And you gotta serve your audience, right? Everyone listening right now knows that hopefully they're gonna get a good interview out of this. So Craig, for people who don't know you or know your main brand, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. So my main brand, like you mentioned, is called Peejamas. Peejamas are an eco-friendly and kid-friendly alternative to disposable diapers. So it is absorbent materials that are incorporated directly into kids' sleepwear. And the reason I came up with it is my oldest at the time, this was several years ago, was potty trained during the day, but during the night we'd put him in a diaper, or sometimes we'd put him in a diaper. And it seemed like every time we did put him in a diaper, he would pee, and the nights that we wouldn't, we were kind of rolling the dice as to whether he'd wet the bed or not. And one night, finally, he had peed. He came into our bed, unbeknownst to us, middle of the night, and I woke up and I was covered. We have a king size bed, and it was the whole thing was wet. And that's kind of when it hit me of well, what if we give him something that is discreet, so he doesn't necessarily, he was 3 or so, but give him something that he doesn't immediately recognize as a diaper, AKA, I can pee in this.
Yeah.
But that still provides our bed and his bed and stuff some security. And after kind of playing around with it for a little while, it worked. We found a product that really worked for him, and then we started testing with more people, and then we launched and went on Kickstarter, did about $250,000. It's still, I think, to date, the highest funded kids apparel product launch in crowdfunding history. Went on Shark Tank. It just kind of snowballed.
Oh, and you were on Shark Tank too.
I was on Shark Tank, but apparently I'm not a very good salesman because we didn't get to air.
Oh, you didn't get to? Oh, shoot.
I felt like the pitch was awesome. I actually had my second son with me during the pitch, and he had the sharks out of their chairs. Is he peeing on set right now? Because part of our pitch was hey, Truman, show the sharks how Peejamas work. And they were losing their minds thinking he was pissing on stage. Anyway, it's been a crazy ride, and really what it's evolved into over the last few years is my skill set is in taking brands that have a functional point of differentiation that resonate with people on an emotional level to help communicate the value of that product. And so since then, I've now launched a few other brands that are doing well and growing and kind of going crazy, but they're all really around that functionality, rather than competing on, what might be categorized as the 4 traditional marketing P's of positioning and pricing and so forth.
Yeah. So what I love about a product like yours, and it's interesting because I've known about this product for a while, and I actually said to myself, I didn't even say this to you before, but I said to myself when I saw your product, I'm like, I want to buy that brand. Like that is like such a good brand. And so
Let's
the reason,
talk, bro. No, I'm kidding.
the reasoning, everyone knows I'm a little deep right now in a few brands that we're buying, but yeah. But the reasoning behind it, why I love it so much, is you're literally solving this problem that every single parent will probably face at some point that is very emotional, right? Like we've gone through this with our middle child for ages now. It's been like a year of this back and forth between between pull-ups and not, and she's 5 now, right? And luckily she does not suffer any sort of stigma with any of this. Luckily, if it was my older daughter, oh man, this would be like a personal affront to her that she was doing this. But like my middle daughter does not care at all.
Whatever. I went to bed, no big deal.
Yeah, she's like, who cares? I can't do anything about it. Like, but for us as parents, it's such a difficult situation, right? And so that's why I think that a brand like what you have is so powerful, right? There's all of this emotion tied into it as parents, right? Of like, we feel that failure too, right? Of like, what are we doing wrong? Why? Right. You're 5. Right. You shouldn't be doing this, right? And so I love this. This problem that you're solving, right, is because especially for us, personally, it's not like she pees every single night.
Right.
It's rare.
That was my son's case, right? And that's why I was like, pull-ups are so wasteful. We feel like they're enabling him, but if we don't put him in it, like what's going to happen to the bed or whatever, and those are typically the perfect use cases, or perfect fit for pajamas, where they're not a heavy wetter, but like there's some inconsistency, and they just maybe need a little bit of backup, is what we like to say. And so pajamas are a perfect fit for that.
So did you go about developing this patent, or did you buy the idea from somebody, or how did that come about?
I assumed that there had to be something like that, right? Or like pajamas, and there was nothing on the market.
That's so surprising.
I know, right? Because it's one of those ideas where so many people on our ads, just scroll through our ads and you'll see people be like, why didn't I think of this? Why didn't I think of that? And those are typically the best ideas, right? Because they're the ones that are hiding in plain sight, that really just take somebody thinking maybe creatively or critically about it, and then executing on it, right? Yeah. And so I started with like the most outlandish ideas of what we could use as the absorbent component. And ultimately, I mean, we don't hide it at all. We use a fabric that's like a blend of bamboo and cotton. And we use that for a few reasons. One, it's very eco-friendly. It's very child-friendly. It's antimicrobial, naturally occurring. Yeah. And it's really absorbent. And so we use that and incorporate it into our pajamas. I just want to step in there for 1 second.
So that is exactly the same. I mean, we probably don't use the exact same blend, but like for our children's line, actually our entire line, it's all bamboo cotton, because we just know that like kids can wear that over and over and it doesn't stink. Yeah. Right? That's like one of the amazing things is like, there's hardly ever any odor because it's something in that bamboo, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's naturally antimicrobial. So it'll help eliminate the microbes and the scents. Obviously, when you're dealing with urine, like it'll smell like pee unless you wash it, right? Where was I? Oh, so the patents. So just to kind of finish that off, we actually have already been awarded our design patent in the US. We have nearly global trademarks, and we're still awaiting the review of our utility patent, because like I said, nothing was really out there. So we have been really fortunate that we could capture so much intellectual property.
Wow, that's absolutely unreal. So what year was this that you guys started?
We went to market in 2018. We just had our 3rd anniversary here like a month ago.
Almost amazing. So
Yeah.
let's talk about growth and what that sort of looked like for you guys. Where have you seen the majority of growth, and what would you say is the biggest driver of that growth?
Oh, I hate to admit this because it's like a love-hate relationship, and I would bet it's similar to most of your guests and maybe even your brands. Is Facebook is so powerful, right? Like
Yeah.
the targeting capabilities in the targeting capabilities in Facebook are just so they're so refined, their pixels so advanced that we've essentially seen all of our growth in one channel, which is good and bad, right? We looked at it and we were like, wow, in the first 12 months we basically had 7 figures in sales, starting with a $35,000 budget, and we did it by being really lean and mean and scrappy. And over these last 3 years, we've still seen 95% of our growth and our revenue come from Facebook, which is good and bad. That's why I say it's good and bad. Good in that we still have tons of opportunity to scale further on Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. But by beginning to diversify into new marketing channels, we feel like we have even more growth and rapid growth opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the scary thing, right? Of being super reliant on that platform, right? Because it's still amazing, right? It's still absolutely phenomenal for driving that growth, but it is very scary, right? Especially now, like looking at all the changes that are happening, it's like, oh no, is this going to do what it used to do?
Next week, we could see huge changes that immediately impact our business and businesses around the world, right? With Apple's new iOS 14 updates. I always refer to it kind of like the standard table stakes of investing strategy, which is diversification, right? Like, let's say something happened to Facebook tonight. Well, there goes 90% of our sales because that's where we're advertising.
Yeah.
And so we need to, and we're very mindful right now of diversifying some of our ad spend outside of Facebook to try and strengthen not only our revenue, but of course our reach as well.
Yeah. And so where are you looking to start to diversify?
So last year we started getting into Google, of course. So, and that was as simple as, retargeting display ads and stuff. But we're now getting into like pre and post roll on YouTube. And then we are very bullish. I don't know. I have no reason to be yet, other than the audience that participates in this network. But I am very bullish in Pinterest. It's hard to nail. That's similar tone and response that I get from other e-com brands and owners, that nailing Pinterest and doing it at a sustainable ROAS can take some time, but it's improving for us. But I'd love to see Pinterest do as much revenue wise as Facebook, and I really do believe that it's possible.
Well, it's got all the makings of a platform that should do that, right? Like everything about it is like, of course, it's the visual Google, right? It should. Everything about it should convert. Why does it not work?
It's crazy. I don't know. One thing that's hampered us, I don't mean to, divert the conversation away, but one thing that's hampered us and our real true growth potential over the years is stockouts. Like, we'll get inventory and it'll stock out so fast, but our lead time's pretty slow, right? Like, we can't make the product super quickly because any factory we use, unless we typically try to use the same factory, but it's their first time creating pajamas because there's nothing else like it. So there's a learning curve, and it's not, a 7-day turnaround or a 30-day turnaround. So we face these stock out issues. And anyway, what I'm getting at is we got replenished like 2 weeks ago, already stocked out again. But anyway, 2 weeks ago got replenished, and immediately in one day, our ROAS on Pinterest went from like a 1 to a 9. And we were like, holy smokes, like that's why I'm so bullish, is because we've seen it. We just haven't had it be sustained for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
But man, if whoever can nail Pinterest and then teach other people to do it and replicate it, that they'd be a very successful agency.
Yeah, I mean, we thought that we had done it. Honestly, at Mindful Marketing, we thought that we'd figured it out, and then we just could not sustain it. We just couldn't figure it. Like, we thought we had it. We're like, okay, we've got this all nailed down, and then it's like no, we can't do this at scale. Does not work. So I will let everyone know if we figure it out.
Yeah, we will come to you for our Pinterest needs. What level of spend were you at? You're saying at scale you couldn't quite sustain it. I feel like on Facebook, most agencies, and I'm not saying you, but most agencies, and especially the ones that we've worked with in the past, hit the like 30 to 40 grand in spend per month, and then they have diminishing returns, right? So getting past that 30 to 40 grand, 100, 200, and maintaining reasonable ROAS is harder, right?
Yeah.
What is that like on Pinterest? I'm sorry to turn the tables and be asking you questions, but
no, this is great. I love being on podcasts too. So, like for me, it's that $1,000 a day mark, right? That's where you just start to like, it just doesn't scale, especially in Canada, right? I think that's a big difference, right? Is our market is 1/10 of the size of the US. So it's a lot harder to scale beyond that point. And I agree for you, very similar with Facebook, right? Where most times you get into that $40,000 to $50,000 a month range and you're like, okay, now we have to do more things, right? And we've definitely figured out, I mean, we've got all sorts of incredible budget moving around ways that we're able to actually scale those ad spends on Facebook, but we do not have those tools on Pinterest, right, to do that on a consistent basis. So yeah, great question back to me.
sorry to divert down like the Pinterest rabbit hole there, but
no, I mean, it's good. I think it's good for people to know, like, if you're banging your head against the wall with Pinterest, you're not alone. It's everybody, right? There's
everybody.
Nobody's solved it. I mean, Pinterest, surprisingly, their stock continues to climb. People are spending money on the platform, I think, in hopes that it's going to go somewhere, and that there's going to be something there. But I've never talked to somebody on the podcast. I mean, I've had hundreds of interviews, and still nobody that's solved it. So
yeah, I think honestly, it's gonna come down to Pinterest needing to figure out their pixel and how they are monetizing their ads, right? Like something's just not clicking internally, I think.
Totally. I mean, they need to just steal some development people, some engineers from Facebook. That's really what it comes down to, right? They just need to figure out, like, how do we get this working for people?
Right. It's worth their investment. Pinterest, if you're listening, go steal some people from Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to ask you a couple more questions here. So where do you go from here? Because I'm thinking about customer lifetime value, average order value. This is a very specific product for a specific time in life. Where do you go from here? Like how, because you really do need a lower cost per acquisition if this is a one-time purchase. Yeah,
brilliant question. Yeah, it's a brilliant question. Obviously, you know these things because of your experience, but there are things that a lot of people don't realize. I'm going to use an analogy mostly based off of my family. So my wife's family are literally every one of them are in the medical field, right? They're either surgeons or orthodontists. And I always say that it's kind of like a surgeon or an orthodontist, where unlike dentistry, you have clients or patients coming back all the time, right? Every 6 months or whatever, ideally. Orthodontics or surgeons, like you fix their smile or you fix their shoulder or their knee and then they're gone. And they might come back in a few years if they need it again. We're in that same boat, right? Because we are trying to help people in a very specific period of time. And it's a very finite period of time. That's one of the reasons also why we got into so much anxiety and trouble during our pre-order is like when we launched on Kickstarter is people were buying it. And if we were late, like most Kickstarter campaigns are, and we were, it might not be relevant to the customer anymore, So there is this very finite period of time that's tough to capture. So we do have a good CPA, we do have a good margin, so we're able to be profitable. But in order to try and make our business more sustainable and have a better, higher LTV, we now just very recently have started launching product extensions. So one thing that might surprise people, it might surprise you, or maybe not because your daughter's 5, our best selling SKUs are our largest sizes. So size 6/7 is our best selling size, then 5, then 4, it almost goes backwards. And so what we've done is we've realized, well, a lot of people, at least in the US, aren't potty training their children until they're 2, sometimes even 3. And so that's probably why our nighttime product isn't selling, because you start with the daytime potty training and it just naturally progresses into nighttime. So we've now launched daytime potty training underwear, so training pants, very much an existing product. We've taken the design that we use for pajamas and replicated that for the daytime product. It won't hold as much urine, but we look at it as an opportunity to capture users at a younger age so that when they are then ready to start nighttime training, then they come back and buy pajamas, right? So we capture them earlier rather than later. And then we're going to start launching more products that are just product extensions that are for the children, but then even some that are for the parents. We have a lot of people that say like, hey, we'd love to have matching pajamas with our kids. So that's another thing that we're looking at. And then of course, incorporating, this probably won't be a surprise to anybody who knows about e-com, but incorporating some products that would have more of a subscription service to it, where they're going to get restocked every month. And that could be more like laundering type products and stuff. So astute question, man. Like we've got to do that because it just means more profitability and returning customers for us.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I got to ask you the question I ask everybody who comes on this podcast. What is your secret to scaling?
Our business model is unique. We believe in function over, I don't want to say over brand, because brand is ultimately, something that's sustainable, but focus on the functional benefits rather than, how you're going to position yourself. So that's something that I inherently believe in. That's something that I that's a sword and a hill that I will die on, because it's a lot easier if you have a benefit that provides, or if you have a selling point that provides functional benefit to your target user or to your customer, it's going to be stickier, in my opinion. So I believe offer something that's functional and that resonates on an emotional level, and people won't forget you.
I'll tell you, it's a lot easier because you're actually solving a problem, right? It's a lot easier than just selling fashion, because there is an actual problem and you're saying, hey, here's the functional solution to that, right? Makes your copy easier, makes your creative easier, all of that.
Exactly. And you look at a lot of brands and they exist because of the brand, right? And it resonates with people on a very emotional level. And that is the success of a brand, is if you get people to have an emotional connection to your brand. But if you can augment that by providing a functional benefit that, again, like you said, solves a problem, it just strengthens that connection with your customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where you get that word of mouth as well, right? Like when oh my gosh, did you know that there is this solve for this problem that we all have, moms, or dads, right? There's an actual solve for it. After I had heard about your brand, I told tons of people. I didn't buy it, but I told tons of people. I was like, did you know that there's these pajamas? It's such a good idea because all of our kids are going through the same thing.
It's universal. That's probably one of the reasons why I didn't air, is because on Shark Tank, I was like, we have a solution that every one of you have dealt with. Like, I pointed out the sharks and I was like, bedwetting. And of course the cameras on them are like, you're calling us out for bedwetting? But the fact is, everybody in the world will wet the bed, right? Because when you're 2 or you're 3 or you're 5 or you're 8, you're learning, right? And your body's learning. And so everybody does. It happens.
And there's no shame. It's just,
there's no
it just
shame.
is what it is. Yeah.
Right. But they probably didn't like being called out like that.
That's funny. I thought that would have been awesome. Great TV.
I thought so as well. And then my son peeing on set, I thought was great. But yeah, it was a good experience. But I'm bummed we didn't air.
Maybe there's some kind of regulatory thing against it or something,
We'll say that. From now on, I'm going to say that. Oh, we were talking about urine and, U.S. regulations don't allow for that.
yeah, exactly. In prime time. Better than prime time. You can't pee on stage in prime time.
Better than admitting that I'm just a bad salesman. Leave me behind the computer just thinking of crazy things rather than trying to sell it,
That's great. Craig, we're going to move on to our lightning round here.
Okay, let's do it.
I hope you are ready. What is your favorite tool or app that you're using right now?
Most recently, it's been Coinbase because I've really kind of caught the crypto bug. So that's probably
you
the
have?
one that I use.
Okay.
I probably use that one the most, aside from Shopify, I would honestly say. I'm always on the Shopify app. But Coinbase has been fun. Coinbase and Public have been fun to just kind of like mess around with. That's where I'm spending most of my time on my phone nowadays.
Cool. That's great. Favorite podcast or audiobook that you're listening to right now?
First and foremost, this one, of course, but second would be...
I mean, I should always just preface after this one.
Yes. Second, I'm going to plug in mine because our podcast is awesome. It's called Founders Therapy. And we specifically talk with founders about the growing, epidemic of mental and emotional well-being and health in the founders and entrepreneur community. And it's just been so insightful and so cool to learn from those people.
Awesome. We'll make sure to put a link to that in the show notes as well. And I'm going to make sure to subscribe right after this.
Okay.
Now, if you could sit down with anybody for an hour, have coffee, tea, beer, wine, they have to be alive, who would it be?
I would probably say, and this is going to go back to the last question, Phil Knight with Nike, because one of the most transformational. I'm not even like a huge Nike guy, right? Like I've got Nikes, but I've got whatever brand I like. But I don't know if you've listened or read the book Shoe Dog.
I haven't yet. It's on my list.
It should move it to the top of your list. It's awesome. It'll resonate with you because, what you say on LinkedIn of like, you bought this restaurant, first day, you're like, what have I done? You'll hear the stories that he went through to get Nike started and it will blow your mind. But it makes you feel like you have the grit and the moxie inside you to do the same thing with your brands when you go through unavoidable challenges and issues. So I would love to sit down with him, not because he's like who I model my life after, my brand and everything, but to hear more of the stories like he has in Shoe Dog would be pretty inspiring.
Yeah. Awesome answer. That's great. Craig, any last parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
I would say if you're just starting or if you're scaling, stay lean and mean. The other secret that we have to scaling our business model, rather than having a bloated overhead, rather than paying myself a whole lot, we leverage experts in their functional area, right? In their core strengths. And so I believe that if you have a good product and you have good messaging that resonates with people, starting with a lean team and outsourcing to other functional experts, you can make your business work. I wholeheartedly believe that.
Amazing. That's great. I mean, that really resonates with the way that we operate our businesses too, right? It's the bursting at the seams mentality, right? Like we're like, until it's like, I think it was U2 that had this, I think it was Bono from U2 who had this quote where he said he'll always play venues that he knows he will completely pack and sell out.
Oh, cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? You never play a venue that you're not going to sell out. And so similar, like with business, like, if you came by our 3 brands right now, our operation, it's like there's not a square inch to move right now.
Right. It's the way to do it, right? Because I think a lot of times what you see is businesses will, like if somebody gets funding, it's like, oh, we got funding and suddenly they've like achieved success. Well, no, like, the fact is you have more and higher expectations now. You better go bust your butt. Like, don't waste that money frivolously. Like, stay lean and mean and do as much as you can with what you have. Yeah, no boats. Don't go buy a Tesla if you can't afford it. Like,
yeah, exactly. Oh, Craig, this is a great interview. Thanks so much for your time today. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, just as Craig Actually, I think it's Craig M. Hammond. Peejamas is peejamas.com. Like I said, Founders Therapy, you can find on any podcast streaming service. And then the new brand that everybody should check out is called StairSlide, stairslide.com. It's a quick slide that you set up in your house on your stairs, so you don't have to go down in like a cardboard box or anything. And it's awesome.
That's what StairSlide is.
A cool product.
Oh,
yeah, it's so cool. And that thing's going like bonkers in the US, but that's a fun one too to check out.
Stair slide. Oh, sweet. Okay, I'm gonna have to get that for my kids for.
Sorry, I shamelessly just plugged all of the fun things I'm working on, but
no. Hey, that's what this
that's
podcast
where you
is
can
about.
find me.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Craig.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. It's great chatting with you.
You too. Wait! Before you go, in the description, we've got some incredible e-commerce only resources for you to help scale your store from wherever you are into the mid 7-figure, 8-figure, maybe even mid 8-figure range this year. So look in the description below for some incredible free resources that we've given to you guys, and we really want to see you guys succeed.